delicious.
Mistakes, only experiments. I've had a lot of my own experiments because we're not born experts, but we learn lessons, and they guide us to grow our techniques just as we grow our plants. So in this presentation, I will share with you how to get your garden started from some basic logistics, and I will offer recipe inspiration. And then we will wrap up with a short poll for all of you good people to take. After the show is over, you will all have the floor and get to know this gardening community. Beautiful, isn't it? So we're here learning what to cook with your edible garden. Like I said, I'll be offering recipe inspiration, and I think this is something really important during COVID-19 pandemic because it's changed all of our lives. So the time at the end for the presentation is really to create a space for all of you to ask questions, tell stories, and share ideas. Please, I request that you keep the conversation polite and use your netiquette skills here today. So one more quote that comes to mind before we fully get started is that gardening adds years to your life and life to your years. I love this quote because I think it's simple, true, and has the research to back it up. The concept is that gardening improves the quality of your life by reducing cortisol levels, which is stress, and it promotes healthy organic eating. Overall, it's just a great hobby to nurture. So you want to start, you want to create your own garden zone. There are some things to consider if you're a beginner. First is placement, right? So work with what you have and think about what the plants you want to plant need. Most will want full sun, but some will take and accept partial shade. That's probably more going to be herbs. So 6 to 8 hours of direct sunlight is ideal. And if you are unable to access a backyard or a larger plot of land, maybe you're using a container garden. Well, each yard or balcony within a plant hardiness zone will have a unique microclimate. It's just what you need to consider as far as placement goes. If you do have access to a larger area, consider garden beds. You could also plant in the ground, but for both, you're going to want to fertilize for adequate nutrients. If you're choosing to use a garden bed, you're going to want to line the inside of the box with a tarp, and this will keep the soil sterile. And by that, I mean keeping the weeds out. So for that, all-purpose soil for the boxes can be found at your local nursery or garden center. And if you're making your own garden bed, you're going to want cedar wood because it will actually last longer. That is also another perk of the tarp. It'll create a barrier from the water and the wood to prevent it from breaking down sooner. It's definitely worth it, is my point. So if you have space and you're thinking, where am I? Because I'm well aware that not everyone here is in Southern California next to campus. And if you're outside of campus, you may have really good soil to just plant directly into, which is great. If you're in California, you probably do not have that, or Southern California, because we have clay soil. Now, it doesn't make it impossible for you to plant in the ground. It just means that you need to amend that soil. And amending soil means that you're improving its physical properties, such as the water retention, the permeability, drainage, aeration, and overall structure, all for better root health. Now, what do I mean by root health? If you want your roots to be really great, capable of moving through the soil, that's what all this aeration and permeability offers. It's something you have to weigh, cost versus benefit, because the garden box is pretty useful. It's convenient. Either way, you're going to want good draining soil. Now, the plant hardiness zone is the next thing you should think about. I'm going to be speaking about Southern California right near campus. That is 10B. So Southern California overall is 10A and 10B, but specifically 10B. So you're considering the plants that you want to grow. And this is the zone in Long Beach near campus, as I've mentioned. And the map right here is a general idea. We're going to post a link in the chat that'll give you like a website to enter in your zip code in, and it'll tell you exactly which zone you're in. Also, if you get seed packets from a local spot, the back of the seed packet will tell you all the information about the plant, as far as when to plant it, how deep to put it in the soil, and how much spacing it will need from the other plants of that variety, of course. Looking at the map, you can tell that there were different seasons, meaning going back to 10B for us, we are a Mediterranean climate. That's kind of rare. There's only 5 in the world, but what it means is we have warm, dry summers and mild, wet winters. All right, so now you kind of have an idea of where you're at and maybe what your placement can sustain, as far as if it's a large area, a small area, you're getting the idea of it all, right? So next, what are you going to grow? So we're in fall season, and I'm going to speak on fall season, but I want to make it known that beginning of this season would be probably September. You would have planted then, and you may have begun to get your harvest now. Some of these plants may actually be a little too late to plant, but that being said, although it's typically a mild time to plant, we have been experiencing really warm weather, largely because of the tragic fires in California. So due to this, it should not be too late to plant some of these items. It's just, it's very flexible. So generally speaking, these vegetables will be more flavorful, sometimes sweeter, when they're grown in cold weather. So all of them would be planted at the beginning of the season, except for watermelon and zucchini, strawberry, and tomatoes. What you'll find is tomatoes actually can, because of our climate, be grown almost all season long. I have a tomato plant currently and it's still producing, so we are not limited. All of them are going to want full sun, and I want to be transparent. I have not planted all of these plants before, but I have done a lot of research on it, and I find the website The Spruce to be a really good resource. So with carrots, something that I found I grew, this is a general, this chart is used to reference the hardiness zone of 10B, and it's a good start to understand when to plant your seeds or transplant your pre-grown plants, which you can get at a garden center. But if you're planting from seed, check the back of the seed packet, like I said, and assume that you have begun your garden, because if you look at this chart, it tells you the seed, the transplant, the harvest, right? So we're coming up on the end of October into November, And it's just a general idea. Like I said earlier, it's pretty flexible. What you really need to focus on is the soil that you're providing, and that it's going to be loose and proper drainage and have the right nutrients. So you can use compost and manure and feed for growth. I think I mentioned earlier that the soil can actually, so compost would be a really good way to garden organically, and it will save you money. Speaking of soil, this is the CSULB land acknowledgement. So we acknowledge the Tuvunga peoples are the traditional land caretakers of Tuvungar, which is the Los Angeles Basin in the Southern Channel Islands. And we are grateful to have this opportunity to work at the sacred site of Puvunga. We pay our respects to the Honkivatam, the ancestors, the Ahilahirom, the elders, and the Iho Hinkim, our relatives, relations of the past, present, and emerging. There is actually a SoundCloud link that we will share that goes through the pronunciation if you're interested. Also, we actively maintain and protect the remaining underdeveloped land base known as Puvunga. The photo on the right hand side is taken on campus near Bellflower Street. And if you've ever been to the Japanese garden, it's located right next to there. There is a large parking lot you can park in, and there's a walking path that kind of takes you through this area. Just a little something interesting if you're near campus and want to check it out. So continuing with some, basic tips. Again, we can talk more in depth about this at the end where we open the floor for everyone. But you're going to want to watch your seedlings grow. Pro tip, definitely prepare the structure for the climbing plants before they sprout. See, this is one of those things I personally had to learn because they had been sprouting. I'm referring to my snap peas. And as they were growing, they didn't have anything to hold on to, versus if I were prepared the first time, they would have. But I'm still learning, so that's something. And then here are some really basic tools that you may not have thought of and would be helpful for you. Gloves, obviously, the garden box, a garden fork. It does a lot more good than you might be aware of. Garden scissors. If you're using your grandparents' old garden scissors and if they're rusty, get a new pair. You don't want rust on those scissors. You're gonna want that fresh sanitized soil, and this is something you could purchase or possibly grow and create of your own because through compost. And then a thick layer of mulch is gonna go a long way. You'll want one large shovel and one small for a little bit more of detailed digging. And then one of my favorite trellises that is simple to make and really beautiful as well, aesthetically pleasing, are twine and bamboo stakes to create your trellises. More basic tips. You should remember plants want consistency. So find a watering schedule that works for you. And if you're not going to be watering by hand, you should look into a drip system. I have a link that I can share at the very end if anyone's interested in something like that. But overall, definitely water consistently. Use a watering can or a shower head on the hose so you do not disturb the placement of your seeds. Always water at the roots of the plant so you don't get the leaves wet, because that can actually burn the plant if it's late in the evening and the sun is hitting them too much. Also, you ideally want to plant water in the morning. Watering in the morning allows the plants to soak up what they need and maybe dry out any excess water. Also, mulch will maintain moisture in your soil, which a plant like carrot really prefers. It needs to be consistently and evenly moist. And you want to prevent weeds in your soil. Mulch can help with that too. It also regulates temperature. When you are thinning your when I say thin vegetables, what I mean is you pluck out clustered stems that are coming up. That way your plant can grow strong and produce a really nice harvest for you. Definitely those weeds, maintenance is very important, and fertilize at the beginning of the season. Feel free to leave it on the top, mix it in just a little bit, maybe with that garden fork, because the nutrients will trickle down as you water. I know some of this information seems very, very basic, but worth mentioning, just in case someone here doesn't know how to get started. So with planting herbs, again, given this climate, you can grow them mostly throughout the year. You can grow them in the same containers, given that they prefer the same kind of water and light. That's actually very common. So for example, you will probably grow cilantro, tarragon, and basil all together because they all love full sun and they love a lot of moisture. And then some plant herbs that would prefer more sandy soil would be thyme, rosemary, sage, or oregano, lavender. And then with all of these herbs, they can clearly be used fresh or dried, but be cautious if you're cooking with dried herbs because they're more flavorful. All right, so you grew your garden and now you have a little bit of an excess. What are you gonna do? You can't share anymore with your friends and family and you've used all that you can cook and you don't want it to go to waste. So something you can try is pickling. I've heard it's very simple. Shout out to Mr. Greeny for providing this recipe. It is tried and true for him. It's also very simple and very customizable to your own needs. If you like a little more spice, throw in those peppercorns, some mustard seeds, red pepper flakes. If you're not too crazy about spice, just leave it. You can get really creative and you can pickle just about anything. My one recommendation would be storage and upcycling. So what do I mean by upcycling? This glass jar you see here could be reused again and again per many different batches of pickles. If you have any glass jars, such as something from a pasta sauce, or I'm a big fan of those peaches from Trader Joe's, those are really good jars, but they have the label on it. So a really easy trick to take that off and upcycle the glass jar is get really hot water, put baking soda in it, and then let the glass jar sit for just about 15 minutes. And the sticky label should come right off. Also, store your pickled items in a dry room because you really don't want any rust on that lid. It will contaminate your food. All right, I hope you all ate already because I'm about to make you really hungry. I have made this kale Caesar salad, and don't be scared away by kale. Gosh, it was delicious. I may sound silly for saying so, but I massaged the kale. It worked. It worked. It was amazing to eat. With this super simple recipe, it's actually vegan. I thought I tricked my family when I made it for them. I don't think anyone was fooled, but it's really good. The point is that even someone who may not want vegan food first preference could really enjoy this. So most of these items can be from your garden, probably not capers, but the kale and the lettuce definitely can be. And that's what I did. I mixed kale and lettuce. Both of these items can be grown in the fall, and the way you want to harvest them is by cutting the base of the plant, and it'll actually keep growing. So that's cool. And the homemade croutons are also very simple. So go ahead and take a photo of this. We will leave it up for just a second if you want to catch that photo. Also, I doubled the recipe and I think it made enough for about 10 people. So some further direction to share with you how I made the sauce, the dressing.
Hey,
You
how's
just
it going?
hey, you soak the almonds, you let them get wet or a little softer. I found this took just about 15 minutes. You prep everything else and you really just throw it in a blender, mix it up, and then add the capers in after, and then mix that up. It might not taste right until after you add the capers because I think the capers give it that extra pop. And then you just chill that. If you're making this, I definitely recommend you prep it before any other food. This recipe was shared with me by one of my lovely neighbors. I don't know if she's on this call right now, but Mrs. Borgers provided it. She said it's one of her favorite. It's so simple, and it is really a great use of zucchini because zucchini is a crop that often overproduces where you find yourself not knowing what to do with it. If we want to keep with the trend of being vegan, you can substitute the eggs for, I don't know if you've tried chia seeds, but you basically just soak the chia seeds with some water and it'll be that binding agent to give you this zucchini parmesan. Roasted carrots, so very simple, so very delicious. They really don't need much. Just give them some salt, maybe butter, pepper, roast them, and add them as a nice, delicious side dish. I found this one online. As we go through these recipes, I hope that you find it as an inspiration to either try or make your own variation of. This is probably my favorite. It was a ratatouille. It's one of those dishes that looks very impressive, but is very simple. And almost all of these vegetables can and will be grown during the fall, all except for eggplant, but you can find that at the store. Again, we'll give you just a second if you wanted to take a photo. So for the ratatouille, this is, as I said, a really impressive looking dish that is very simple to make. So whatever the occasion is for you, go ahead and try that. This is my photo because I had made it for my family. I did that kale Caesar salad that you saw on top of homemade croutons, the pasta, and the ratatouille. And it was a hit. It was definitely delicious. I want to give a shout out to my friend Emily for inviting me to try this recipe. The different tips that she gave me were, because I found this recipe online, sort of. She had provided it to me, but shared with me her tweaks on it. And I think preheating the oven to 350 was the key because it makes the vegetables not mushy, which I have heard you can do. Um, and the other big trick that I really enjoyed is you cook the ratatouille under tinfoil for about 40 minutes. And then when you take it off, you add the topper on. So if you want any more details, if you're trying to try it, definitely take a photo and then maybe ask me any questions you want at the end during our open time. So I have to give a shout out to the farmers markets of Long Beach as well. I hope that if you have access to something like this, you really take advantage of it because these are local farmers. They have fresh food for you if you don't have access to something to grow your own. Um, you support like local businesses and they're almost every day except for just Sunday, you know. I used to think they were only on Sunday, but that's why we've provided this for you. Go ahead and take a photo if you're interested. We have one more slide after that continues different times. I've found that most vendors will go between different markets. So if you know the name of a vendor from, you know, the Tuesday market, then you can probably find them again on Fridays or Thursdays. The internet will be your friend with that as well. And then another opportunity you will have to access a garden if you don't currently have access is our Grow Beach on campus. It's going to be coming this spring, 2021. Opening day is to be determined, but it's for students, staff, and faculty. We donate to the beach pantry, and there are health benefits that go into gardening. So if you think, oh man, I won't have time with my semester, it's so busy, let the garden be your therapeutic moment to relax and visit on campus and, you know, find a little peace. Please consider joining our community because it's really special. Not all campuses have this. Um, Long Beach is just one of those great cities that is bike friendly, um, community garden friendly. And if you're not in the area, I highly recommend you to search for something like this in your area because it'll help you. Remember, gardening adds years to your life and life to your years. So we have come to the time where we want to ask you some questions, see what you've learned. You'll have a few minutes to go ahead and fill this out, and then we can reconvene after. Is everyone able to see the poll activity? We'll give you a couple more minutes to go ahead and submit what you believe is true. I don't believe I spoke on all the different egg substitutes, but we'll see what you guys know without me having discussed that. All right, we're going to go ahead and wrap up the poll. You should be able to see the results after. I'm seeing from someone that, oh. You can turn your microphones on now if you want to let us know that you can see the poll results.
You can see them.
Great. Okay, thank you. Okay, cool. So let's go through that. All right. So I would say, so 50% of you got that full sun is ideal. Morning sun is good and partial shade can work, but for the purpose of most vegetables in the fall, full sun is what you're probably looking for. The benefits of gardening, I'm so happy you all got it almost. It definitely boosts your mood, but it also aids in fast recovery for rehab patients, as studies have shown, and it reduces cortisol levels. So all of the above, gardening is really good for your health. And it is true. Cold weather plants will lose flavor if exposed to too much heat. I'm not exactly sure what this is. I think it puts too much stress on the vegetable. Yeah. And I'm really happy. Yeah, mango puree is not an egg substitute. Applesauce can be, but I think flaxseed and chia seeds are the most common egg substitute. And you do definitely want to add nutrients every season because your vegetables will have eaten up what you gave them last season. And per season, typically, you're going to begin a new crop. So cool. That's really cool. Oh, very nice to know. Thank you for sharing. So in the chat, someone said that their friend made a vegan birthday cake with applesauce and it was amazing. I wouldn't mind if you had that recipe to share. It'd be really cool. So as I said, I am a beginning gardener. So these are the sources that I use to find this information for you guys today. I just began my edible garden this spring of this year. So it's been a lot of trial and error, but it's also been really fun. This is why I say the internet is your friend. Also having the community that we're about to open up. And I really want to acknowledge committees. Sustainability on campus have had put together a Sustainability Month, which is probably how y'all found this presentation, as well as we worked really closely to them, specifically Kimberly Cruz, worked hand in hand with them, and also ASI, which is what Sustain You is under. And I want to especially thank Arnesia Bryant, my director, for helping me, organize this all out and keep motivated during doing so. Thank you all. There is one more event during Sustainability Month, and it's going to be this topic on how to vote or why you should vote. All right, so we're ending at about 12:40. I hope that you feel comfortable to unmute yourself, say a little something. Feel free to share it in the chat. We will also be sharing an extra credit link for you in the chat as well. That way, if you're here for that, you will definitely get extra credit. But does anyone have something to ask, share, any thoughts? Hey, Sean. Okay, so you said, I have had some problem with soil in the past, so hopefully the new strategy will help. Do you mind sharing with me what kind of problem and what strategy you are referring to? Pearl asked, how do I access the recording after? That is a good question. I currently do not know, but I will find out for you. Okay. Oh, I see, Sean. Okay, so for the baby carrots, that is also something I ran into. I had carrots that had grown because I started them in the spring, and they were similarly very short. I think the problem is the nutrients, definitely, and possibly the moisture. You should invest in mulch and water them consistently. They're kind of picky. If you give them too much water, they will crack. If you've ever seen those carrots and they just have a crack in it, and you're like, what the heck? But that's why, a little too much moisture. Okay, so I'm gonna start with Megan's question that she's had hard soil where she's from, it's possibly clay. And by hard, I think you mean like digging into it is like very tough. That's something where you need to amend your soil. I think that you can tell if it's good soil based on, this sounds silly, but the smell. You know, you can definitely smell fresh soil. If you're ever walking through a neighborhood that has gardeners there, you can smell when they put down manure. I would say give it a try. And by that, I mean add compost or manure or liquid fertilizer, and then see if it changes. And dry, yeah, definitely sounds like the soil that I've worked with. So let me get a little bit into soil. I don't have a diagram for you right now, but the difference in soil can be summed up to clay, which is very fine. And so it compacts very easily, right? And loomy soil, which is probably what you want, is more sand-like. So it doesn't compact as easily. There's a lot of space in between the different particles that make up the soil. And that is why the plants tend to grow better there, because it has better drainage. The permeability is how much it drains, and the roots can make their way through the soil with more ease. That's what I like to see. Thank you, Megan. Soil tests. I've never used a soil test. Again, I invite anyone to open up their microphone and speak if you feel comfortable. And Kimberly is sharing a lot of links. So if you're not directly from Long Beach, like the climate hardiness zone I spoke on, you can use the calculator to find out exactly what zone you're in. The soil calculator is if you're creating your own bed, and it'll tell you per cubic feet how many bags of soil that you will need. And this pronunciation is for the land acknowledgement and how to say the Tavanga people's language. Oh no. Regina said, I started a garden this spring, and every time I planted lettuce, an animal and or a bug would always eat all of her lettuce. I understand you didn't want to use pesticides because it can be harmful. A tip that I would give you for that problem is if you haven't tried neem oil, because it sounds like you have animals eating it as well, there are these specific cage-like things. I can look up the name for you, but it's very specific and it will actually cover your food. So like bugs and animals can't just like, it's not a buffet. They can't just access it. Let me find out what that's called for you. All right, there's actually a lot of different names. You can use a wire. You can also use insect protected tunnel. Let me get a photo for you. I'll show you first what it would look like. And then after, I think I can look up how to make your own, you know, if you don't want to. If you don't want to pay too much money. Okay, so I shared a link of something simple that you would have to buy, but oh, gophers! Janet, where are you from?
Hi, I'm in Long Beach, and they like my yard.
Mm, dang.
So I've noticed that they have these grow bags that you can buy in like 7 or 10 gallons, and you're not putting them directly into your ground soil. And I wondered if anybody else had a experience with that, and if the vegetables grow fine in those or not.
I'll let someone answer if they do know, and then I'll come back to you if no one says anything.
I've had gopher problems in the past, and what I did was I had raised bed planters, and I just put hardware cloth, like a wire mesh, on the bottom of my raised bed planters before I filled them up with dirt, and that successfully kept the gophers out of them.
Mm.
Thank you, John.
Are there any natural pesticides from things like bugs that would get through the like wire mesh? Yeah, they ate our tomatoes.
I believe neem oil is one of the more natural. It's like an oil. Let me see if it works specifically for tomatoes. Okay, yeah. Have you heard of neem oil? NEEM?
I have not.
Okay, so it's a dual purpose for vegetable gardens. I think it's concentrated, so I believe you dilute it and then spray. Has anyone here tried neem oil before? No. Okay, so ooh, I've heard things like rosemary oil because it's very, some bugs really don't like that intense smell, are good. Pearl, would you like to elaborate on the space that you have?
Maybe like a patio.
Okay. Do you have enough space for, say, 3 containers?
Well, I'm actually actually asking this ahead of time. I don't have a patio yet, but
Okay.
but in the future when I do have one.
Okay. So you could just focus on one crop. And then there's something called companion crops, which means in the same container, like, just maybe, I don't know what the width would be, but an average depth of about this much. Companion planting means that the vegetables that you grow work in harmony. They don't compete for the same nutrients or as much water. They actually promote the health of each other.
Okay, that would be good to know when I start gardening. Thank you.
Yeah, and I can give you some details real quick. So, all right, so cilantro would be good. I would like to say cucumbers, but they do take up space, except for since they're climbers, they grow up. Vertical crops would be good for you. I think peas, snap peas would be really good for you because they also grow up, and snap peas grow well with cucumbers, but I don't know about the space on that. Beans and legumes would go well in there. Maybe spinach, kale.
Also, I can grow kale. That's good.
Yes, yeah, and they're pretty compact because they do grow vertically. So I think that would be a good option.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it throughout? Are there any plants that grow throughout the year?
Yeah, yes. So most herbs will grow throughout the year. I have noticed that peas have been doing really well in my own experience because they're still good through the fall, and I was successfully growing them even in the summer when they're not heat tolerant plants. But in my perspective, they grew pretty well. So I will put peas in that category. And sort of carrots. So as was mentioned, they grow better. They're going to be more flavorful if they're grown in cold weather, but you can still grow them in throughout the year, I think. But say it's summertime, that's the kind of crop that you would want to put in shade because the heat is intense.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. Oh, how did I skip it? Tomatoes. Tomatoes are your best bet for growing throughout the year. They love our climate. Anything citrus, lemons
I
as
love
well.
tomatoes, so.
Oh, good. Yeah. And there's like so many different varieties. So that's good.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Nick said, is asking for tips on removing mold from mulch or to prevent it. I haven't come across this problem. It sounds like there's too much moisture for something like that. And it seems like it's not in the sun because enough sun and the mold won't be able to cultivate. It's more in like damp, cold areas. So possibly your layer of mulch is too thick. And Pearl, I'm not sure if you saw this, but Janet has offered a small area idea for you for growing, being sereno chilies.
That sounds interesting. Thank you.
Sure. Did anyone have, who was it who had the birthday cake recipe? Oh, Aline? Are you here, Aline? I think we lost Aline. No way. Janet, you're full of information. Did everyone see what Janet said?
I think they always have the mulch because the city would take all the downed trees that they trim and mulch it there down in that area. So
Yeah,
I haven't used it myself. I haven't taken any, but last time I was there, they had a big mountain of it.
I didn't talk too much on composting, but if anyone had questions on that, I have done some myself. Or if you have your own story and would like to share, it'd be very welcome. Janet, have you ever done your own composting?
No, I didn't. I think I just didn't follow through. But I went to, I think the city of Long Beach will host a composting workshop. But no, I haven't done it myself.
So in my experience, compost is something that it's not difficult, but it's something you have to be consistent with, mostly because it needs to be tended to. So it's essentially bacteria, and that's how the food scraps are going to get broken down. And the way I had done it was vermiculture, which means you have specific worms. They're called red wrigglers, and you just let them eat up all your food. Oh, thank you, Nick. You let them eat up all your food, and they produce, when they poop it out, they actually produce something called worm castings, and it's very concentrated. So the different ways that you could use it is collect the worm casting and dilute that into water, and then offer it, like spray it or water your plants with it, and that would give them good nutrients. Or you let your compost age, because see, it has to be broken down all the way. That means there's not going to be any more seeds. I think I had mentioned I had potatoes, and I would occasionally use my compost in my soil in my attempt to amend it as I was learning. But I actually had some volunteer potatoes, which someone had asked about a bag. That bag that you put in the put your potatoes in.
Yeah, the grow bag.
The grow bag.
Yeah.
That's very useful for potatoes, because you're not going to mess around with not knowing where they're at. You can just put your hand straight in and find them.
You have to be careful with compost because otherwise you'll have lots of vectors. So you have to have it concealed in some way.
Mm-hmm. The container is very important. Kitten, do you have any of your own compost stories?
Yeah, I don't. I used to work for an environmental engineering company, and they used to give them away. I didn't take one because we have too many rats around here already. And I don't care about the bird vectors, but I don't want rats. I don't want to encourage them. But they're the wonderful one that we used to get rid of was a barrel. It looked like a barrel and it had a door. So you put the stuff in it and you turn the crank and it would move stuff around. And then the stuff that was ready to be compost came out the bottom.
Oh.
I don't know the name of.
I've seen those online. I think if you simply look up the container, like a compost container, that's one of the first ones that comes up.
Mm-hmm.
But I've noticed they do seem a little pricier.
Oh yeah, they're expensive, but rat removal is expensive too. I know that from personal experience.
Oh no. Well, thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
For everyone here, Kitten Borgers is who offered the Zucchini Parmesan recipe that I shared with you earlier. Oh, fun. I don't know if everyone can see this in the chat, but Carol shared with us that there's a composting lesson, vermiculture too. Oh, nice. And that they sell bins and kits. Unfortunately, it is closed for COVID, but hopefully it opens soon. I had tried the inexpensive way to create my own compost, and the vermicompost that I was speaking on was very successful for some time. And then the box that I had put it in, it broke down. I composted my box, so the box had a big hole in it, and the soil was just falling out with the worms. And during this time, I was trying to use that compost in my garden, so it kind of worked out. But you have to be careful about the compost that, or the container that you use for your compost. I know there is a man around Long Beach who actually will, he offers, oh, what are they? Community gardens. And if you go, you can volunteer at those gardens. Not as much right now because of COVID, but you can volunteer at those gardens and he'll put you to work. You gotta like churn the compost, you like take your fork and then you like move it over to this other area because aeration is very important in the process of that bacteria breaking down. Also, side note, sometimes you will go to a cool little, store or shop and it will say maybe the coffee cup that you have is compostable. Well, that may be true, but it's not compostable in your own personal compost unless it reaches a certain heat, because that's going to be kind of a factory composting. So at that point, for the heat, it's not false advertisement, but it's not something that you can probably do at home. It has to go to a specific plant to compost, which is kind of disappointing. I had tried it with my Trader Joe's bags. They were there for months and it never composted. Did anyone else have any more thoughts or questions or anything of that sort? Has anyone here been gardening themselves? And if so, what have you been gardening?
Okay, well, I'll go. I've tried it. I've done summer gardens. I've never done a winter garden. And everyone says tomatoes are the easiest thing to grow, but I have a hard time with them. They get cat faced or they get the, what do you call that? Blossom rot or something like that. And they do fine for a little while. And then after a while, I'm doing something wrong apparently.
No.
I'm the same way. I've had a tomato plant since March and the plant is still alive, but not a single tomato has grown. So I'm sure I'm doing something wrong.
Mm. I wonder if it's the nutrients, because
How often do you water?
me,
Yeah.
maybe I give them a really good soak every 2 to 3 days. I'm located really nearby campus. So even during those heat waves, I was just doing every 2 to 3 days, and they still produce for me. Also, something going back to my whole compost failure, sort of, I never planted tomatoes. I did not intentionally put them into my garden. However, I believe they're referred to as volunteer plants. So all of a sudden they just started coming up. I have heard that it could be a pollination problem, because if you have either of you seen the little yellow flowers come up?
Yes.
I
yes.
did, but they died.
How often do you two water?
I did it daily.
Daily.
I-
Okay.
I heard that not to water it so much, so I was only doing it. I was trying to get it deep and then leave it alone for like a week. And I'd get the tomatoes, but then they would get icky on the bottom and drop off.
I wonder, are you both located in Long Beach?
Yeah, I'm in
I'm
Long Beach.
in Santa Ana, so Garden Grove, not too far.
Yeah, no, not too far. I would say check out the nutrients that you're using. I've had some of my tomatoes kind of rot, but they'll get like this hole, and I think it's a little insect, and it'll just kind of burrow into it, I'm pretty sure, and then it starts to get moldy. But I just picked those off, and I don't have too many of those, and they keep coming. I don't know. I think it must be the nutrients, because I'm not doing anything that special. Thank you, Megan, for stopping by. Oh, I should say we're going to share a poll. We're going to send it out to your emails. I really hope y'all can get back to us, and just, it should be no more than 3 minutes. Yeah. Sorry to hear about your tomatoes, guys. Does anyone else have any vegetable stories? Although I guess tomatoes are fruit, technically. Has anyone here not ever tried gardening, and you're just getting the gist of it? Like, just trying to understand what you want to do? Well, if no one else has any thoughts or questions or stories, I think we can sum up this meeting. I'm going to stay here, but there's an extra credit link in the chat, and we, again, will send out that survey to your emails. So thank you. Thank you for stopping by.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Mhm. Pearl, from the sounds of it, what I've shared with you are very basic ideas. We will be sharing this recording somehow, so maybe if you email or send Kimberly your email, we can send you the link of the video recording. That way you can go through it. But if you have any other specific questions, I'd be more than happy to answer you with what I do know. Oh, good. Sounds like Kim has your email.
Gabrielle, hello.
Hello.
I hit the little buttons next to where you type in your chat to save it, to save the entire chat, but where did it save it to? Where do I? If you,
I believe it saves it to the computer you are on.
oh, so
and
if I
then-
paste it to anything, it'll be there?
Yeah, there should have been a little like highlighted area where it says see in folder.
Oh, show in folder, okay.
It should be in a folder because I use that technique.
Oh, okay. And the folder, is it in like downloads or something?
It should be, or just go to your most
Oh.
recent.
It just showed up. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks for coming by.
Thank you so much. This was very good. I enjoyed it.
Yay. Pearl, Anna, are y'all with us?
I'm still here.
Okay. If you have any questions, let me know. If not, I think we're going to about adjourn the meeting.
Okay. Is there a contact that I can contact you later if I have questions?
Yes, totally. First, we're going to send you an email with the link, and then we can, I believe that'll be the email that you can contact us at.
Okay. Thank you.
Sustain you. Yes, of course.
Thank you.
Have a nice day.
You too.